not just out here, but it's in general. People will say, "I'm not religious. I'm just spiritual." So you just buy into a different religion, really. But it's I mean, seriously, you just buy into a different religion. Maybe it really is Scientology, or maybe it's the religion of I only use, I only use stuff from objects, that don't even use sunlight. I believe that's exploited. Some goofy
Wait,
shit.
say that again. You only use objects that what? What about
I said
sunlight?
you only use objects that don't even feed on sunlight because you believe that's too exploitative.
What?
I was no, I mean that's not a real thing. I was making a joke at how
Oh,
like
okay. I was like, what?
streets of
Like,
motherfuckers.
you think that shit? Like, you think
Nah,
that
nah, nah,
shit?
nah, nah,
No,
nah.
but
I was making fun of them.
you're talking about spirituality, and yeah, I would say I'm one of those people that is like, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, because this has been my spiritual journey anyway. I was born and raised Catholic. I went to kindergarten through 8th grade, high school, and university, all Catholic school.
Jesus Christ.
And for real, Jesus was there the whole
Yeah,
time.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Jesus Christ was right. And I became agnostic in high school.
Okay.
Before I really knew the whole spirituality thing even existed. I mean, I knew about spirituality in terms of being a Catholic. I didn't know that you could still be spiritual and not adhere to a religion. But that's what I felt like my agnosticism was that, I believe in not only the possibility but the probability of some kind of higher power, whether that higher power whether that higher power is one single all-powerful omnipotent being, or if that higher power is more of like the universe as a whole. I don't
Mm.
know. There's a lot of things that we don't understand
Right.
about our universe and our world. And there's a lot. There's an infinite number of things that we will die not knowing.
Oh yeah.
Some people think that maybe in death all the answers will be revealed, and that's not even. I don't think that's even likely.
What's
But
the
what
point
I
though?
do think is likely is that reincarnation exists. I believe that that is probable. Now, is it as clean as people think it is, like where you just jump from like one body to another living body,
Hmm.
or are you transferred to somewhere else in the universe, or just somewhere else in the same room? Like, if I die right now, does my soul just go into that plant over there? Like, I don't know where it goes. But I
Yeah.
do think that reincarnation and karma are quite possibly very real. For me, I know that I live my life as a good person,
Hmm.
and good things happen to me, and bad things seldom happen to me. And whenever something that is bad happens to me, I can kind of trace back to the point where I was being an asshole, which I think is, for me, I think I have a pretty clean slate, because if I can, if I, if something bad happens to me and I can trace it back to like, oh yeah, well, somebody just a bird just shit on my car, and I, just threw something on the freeway, like some trash, that's like a stupid symbolic retribution type thing. Um, but like being able to trace it back to the last thing you did, I'm like, all right, cool. Like I have a pretty clean, credit and debit as far as like good things and bad things done, right?
Hmm.
I don't know. That's just for me. Like I know that for a while when I was trying to figure things out, every time
Hmm.
I would do something bad would happen to me. And that's when I was like, dude, this like karma is fucking real. And it was always like, if you ever read or heard of Dante's Inferno, they
Yeah.
talk
Oh yeah.
about they talk about symbolic retribution. Like if you cut off a man's legs in spite, like you'll come back, maybe like with no legs or something. I don't know, some bullshit like that. And then,
Yeah.
but then it makes you look at things. It makes you look at people, and like it's so crazy because by that logic, when I see somebody out in the streets or on TV, and I'm like, man, that person doesn't have legs, or like it lives in a war-torn country or something like that. That makes me think like, what put them in that situation? Maybe it was something they did in their past life. Like
Well,
I
this is
was
very
thinking
much
about,
like the caste system in this is very much like the caste untouchable system in India, which
yeah,
they had recently
exactly.
which they had recently abolished after how it's still de facto how it's there, but it's like as far as like what's on the books, I think it's like, hey, we don't officially acknowledge that we think this way, basically.
Well,
So that I
that's
guess
where the whole reincarnation thing comes from, is mostly from like Buddhist religions and stuff like that. Which, for me, I feel like all religions are
well
essentially
that's
saying
Hindu.
the same thing, huh?
Well, that's Hinduism. Buddhism is about reaching like a state of like personal state of nirvana,
Enlightenment.
and I believe that's say that again.
Yeah, enlightenment, nirvana, the same thing.
Yeah,
But
yeah. No,
it's all
but
about,
there's no
all about
reincarnation in
escaping
Buddhism as far as I know.
it's all about escaping the cycle of samsara, I think it's called, which is basically just reinc- Yeah.
No, that's
Anyways,
it's the well, I don't know. Yeah, well, like I said, in Buddhism, it's like about escaping that cycle. But Buddhism is more of like a material conditions type thing, which is why their whole shit is about not indulging in a lot of things in society. It's about reducing the material shit. And then like Hinduism, like you said, their cycle is like literally escaping one body and then going into a different one. But
they're
I
both
guess the
pretty
question
similar.
is,
I think
yeah, I mean, yeah, they have to.
Hinduism is mostly different in that they have like thousands of gods, and I don't think Buddhism has gods like that. I think
No, it's
that's like,
anti-deity.
huh?
It's a yeah, no. Buddhism is an anti-deity
Oh, okay, yeah. So I
or
think that's like the
non-deity.
main difference, but they both talk about reincarnation, um, and
My
enlightenment.
question is right, but my question is this then in those things, and then afterwards I'll go and talk about like my path to spirituality and stuff. Is that then how do you explain two things? The origin. So then, what is the actual origins of the first people who did something that was quote unquote good or bad? What were the forces at play that, excuse me, that decided, okay, this is what this action is worth here, and this is what this behavior or action is worth over there. And then also, um, do you think maybe that you were just noticing that you just so happened to notice stuff because your mind was when bad stuff happened that you just so happened to make a connection, but it wasn't necessarily there. Like you could say, oh, I shouldn't have parked my car here and blah blah blah. But so you could park your car anywhere, and a bird can shit on anywhere, anything, or anybody could break
It would
your
literally
side
be
view,
like
your side
it would literally be like
side
I
view
would
mirror.
like litter a piece of trash, and then I'll go
Mm-hmm.
wash my car, and then the day after I wash my car, it'd just be littered with bird shit. But I mean,
Well,
and then I would like watch how I wouldn't do anything wrong, and like nothing bad would happen to me, like ever, like no, like almost like knock on wood. I'm not trying to like fucking test anything out there,
yeah.
but I have a pretty good life because I try to maintain my good morals, and I feel like I I maintain that by having good karma. And I
But what's
feel
the
like I
root?
have
But like,
good karma overall. And I go through like normal struggles like everybody else, but not everything bad that happens to you because you did something bad. Sometimes bad things happen to make way for a better thing to come along. Like I got
then
fired from my job one time, and it pissed
yeah.
me off. And the night that I got fired from that job, the girl that I had been dating there for like 3 weeks or a month, she broke
Mm-hmm.
up with me that night too. I was like, damn, I got dumped and fired on the same fucking day. Well, the
Right.
next job that I got, um, was not only was I not I was working as a bar back bartender, Now the next job I got, I was an actual just like full-time bartender. That was like my full. So that was like my first time I got that job. But not only that, that's where I met my baby mama. We've been together for 5 years now, and not only that, one of the guys who came in like almost every day, he got me my job in my union that I'm now in a union, and I make pretty good scratch when I work it. So like so many good things happen from one bad thing happening. Now I don't know what that has to do with karma or whatever, but
But that's what I
from
mean.
what
That's
I
what I'm trying to get to, though.
this is what I feel about spirituality. I think in life we are here to learn and to grow. And I think that everybody in their lives has been put in a life. We have each been put in the lives that we live because we are meant to learn something from this perspective.
And it's like, I guess, like you said, like, yeah, I am very much a pragmatic person. I like being able to see a certain logic or rationale, but I'll acknowledge that one of the problems with that is that there's always going to be things that either are beyond my comprehension or, beyond my knowledge or expertise, or just beyond explanation in human understanding in general. Now, I default on that by saying, okay, there's just not an explanation for it yet. And then you say, aha, well then why can't that apply to religion or spirituality? And, I guess once again, I would just come back to, I don't know, but I also don't need to know that there is one because I just don't see, I guess to me, it's a lot easier to accept randomness than it is to accept this engineering or orchestration, just because there's so many. It's kind of like the thing we were talking about, the conspiracy stuff earlier, where it's like the reason why it's so hard for me to believe any type of conspiracy, even if it justifies something that proves my point, is I understand human fallacy and human shortcomings, and that even the smartest, most disciplined people in the room are still humans. They'll fuck up, or at least the other people they have to work with or work around are going to fuck up. Because nobody's ever, shooting at 100%, firing all cylinders, 24/7. That's just not being human. I just don't see like all the different spiritual systems, whether it's Taoism or Buddhism or different indigenous religions or any type of Christianity or Catholicism and shit. I'm just like, or voodoo. I'm just like, I'm not really seeing a consistent pattern. What I'm saying here. So it's like I'd much prefer to go with these other patterns, whether it's talking about like macroeconomics or archaeology or scientific method or art and aesthetics studying or like music theory and shit like that, where it's like, okay, these are the things we've learned from all this trial and error as a species. If you do this, then this is likely to get this result, and if you go in this direction, this is likely to get you results in this way, and blah 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 blah. And it's just a lot easier for me to deal with, like, okay, confronting those things as opposed to like like the karma and the reincarnation, just because I'm like, it's there's so many different like moving parts and variables. It's like for one thing to be operating for one set of rules to be operating in this space, and then for these other things to be happening over here, would mean that there's all these different laws that are going on at the same time. But they mix and mash in so many weird places, and there's so many contradictions. It's just too much unaccounted for shit.
See, for me, the way I see it is you can still do all that and just be a good person, because
right.
I kind of relish in the fact that, like, a tryout for another life, a tryout for another life, a tryout for another life, because the way I see it is, if every single culture and every single, peoples from throughout time have talked about God or gods, and a code of ethics, I think that was instilled in us for a reason. And, you know, whether it was God who put us on this planet, or it was, you know, some fucking aliens manufactured us and dropped off our seeds here, or whether we just organically grew here from the planet through evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, you know, everybody pretty much has the same idea. Be a good person, and you know, you'll hopefully have a good afterlife. And, you know, why wouldn't you want to ascend to, yeah, like, I mean, you could still be you. You could still be, you know, everything you want to be. You can still choose what to believe in, and just be a good person. You know what I mean? Because you know, I think to claim, you know, atheism is to claim that you 100% know that nothing else exists out there, and I don't think anybody on this planet can say they know for sure.
Well,
no, nobody can know for sure that Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior. You never met the nigga. I don't know him. You know.
Well, that's
you know what I'm saying. Like right. Nobody can say that Allah is the one. You know, nobody could say that, you know, Buddha actually existed a few thousand years ago. Nobody can say soul does or doesn't exist. We just don't know. That's why I claim agnosticism. Like, I believe something could exist, but I don't know what it is really. I just have my theories. I have my ideas. You know.
Right. So the thing is that like with the atheism, you know, while there are some, you know, the new age atheists who are just like, no, God doesn't exist, and they want to argue and shit about it. It's no, I don't believe God exists, but I don't know that God doesn't exist. So it's like, I'm not even saying that like, oh, I'm 100% sure there's nothing else out there. It's just I'm more so just saying that to me it doesn't matter, even if there is, because I'm much more concerned about what's happening right here. You know what I'm saying? Because if there is some other type of existence, and if we're taking on anything that's resembling human behavior, human psyche, human culture, then all this shit that's going on now is just going to repeat itself, no matter what plane it's on, or what, no matter what other, the conditions and shit. Because, ultimately, what makes humankind is the combination of like these mortal bodies and these, our perception, the consciousness, and interacting in a world that has, these laws of physics. It's like once you change like the laws of physics that are supposed to be applied, then it's like our whole consciousness and way of understanding things becomes completely moot, which is why, why I say I doubt all of these religions, because they all give a very sure shot of like, yeah, this is the thing. And then to even say that like, oh, maybe it's one or more of these things, but it's like some of them completely contradict one another and are, opposed to one another. Like the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, fundamentally come from the same place, but there were certain parts of it they took very divergent interpretations. The main one being, do you see Lord, Jesus as your Lord and Savior? Christianity and Catholics, yes. Islam, they're like, he was a great prophet, but he wasn't the only one. And then Jews,
they like Muhammad better.
Yeah, they're like, Muhammad's our main guy, but Jesus was all right. And then Judaism, they're like, Jesus, we don't give a fuck about him.
Yeah, right.
We don't need all this New Testament shit. So the thing is, it's once again, it's when I, in my atheism, it isn't saying, yes, absolutely nothing exists. It's just that I'm so doubtful that I'm so doubtful to the point where I'm not even interested. You know what I'm saying? I don't even care if there is at this point. I'm just super focused on, this experience and trying to pass on whatever I can to help that next person, enjoy whatever it is left in this world.